Hey everybody, welcome to the first part of my analysis on the 2021 European final of the men's division between Clapham from London and Fotta from Bologna. These two teams met in 2019, with Fotta causing an upset, winning for the first time by using teamwork on defence to disrupt Clapham's usual patterns. You can find my analysis of this game elsewhere on YouTube. I was excited to see how both these teams had developed since then, so let's dive straight into it.
Fotta arrived with pressure on the dump but sagging off the far handler and with a hat player in the middle. Clapham was spread across the field. Fotta stopped the preferred first pass and almost have two bids on the second look to Ford. Ford gets balanced quickly after catching and is immediately ready to throw the length of the field if the option is there. The nearest defender is only 30 yards away and getting split by Briggs and Cartwright off screen. After they get beaten, they're outnumbered 3-1 and Ollie Gordon follows up for the goal. Clapham defence arrives sagging off the handlers. Downfield you can see Andy Lewis and Ben Funk set up a poached bracket, which leads to a good switch to nullify both of the options. Kopi and DeLuca almost run into each other, and Felix Martin and Nathan Ragg switch instead of calling a pick, almost in time for Martin to have a bid on the under. If Martin had preempted this switch, he was in a perfect position to stop the under. Kopi hard commit to their focus directly downfield after catching, going against the principle of facing infield, and then pivots hard into the backfield. Clapham punished this predictability with tight reset marking at this moment, and Martin repositioning to force the up line or the inside throw. Rag almost gets the D, but there's a bit of an auto fake as nobody downfield is open, and then a sketchy inside dump which is caused by the aggressive around force. Fotta cluster momentarily, and Clapham switch to cover DeLuca and fix their positioning. This is the second good switch that Rag has been involved in this point, and again he almost gets the block immediately afterwards. Fotta crossover again, and instead of switching, Hillman calls pick. There's something interesting after, with Felix Martin using his positioning to hinder the offense, which I think is good, providing he doesn't initiate contact or call pick. He kind of does initiate contact, but it could be interesting to practice this kind of physical double teaming within the rules to gain specific advantages in very specific situations, just like Jinx do in this clip from the same tournament after a timeout. Hillman and Lewis switch to cover the predictable moves around the disc. Again, we momentarily see this classic bracket shape as the players cross over against good awareness from Clapham defence. Gasperini looks off an open pass, and Will Rowledge very nearly punishes him for it. Funk poaches off and physically gets in the way of the next cutter. In theory, he could hang around here and block off the next cut, but Angela is already connecting with the thrower in order to punish the poach. It's worth noting that this technique of physically blocking the next cut feels like some kind of blocking foul, but it isn't. So long as contact isn't initiated and the disc isn't in the air, then it's legit to double team downfield players. Fotta again cross over downfield, which could be legitimately called a pick, or it could be used by the defence to switch and cover or bid. Fotta then make a cross move in the backfield, and Clapham almost switch, almost call pick, but end up doing neither. The movement isn't technically a crossover for the offence, but it encourages the defenders to cross over. If the defenders preempt the switch, then they can gain an advantage, but if they expect the pick and it doesn't happen, then they're left in a very bad position. What contributes in this instance is that both Hillman and Rowledge instinctively react to the movement correctly and take a step to poach or to switch or to physically block out the other player, but then they revert to their original marks. This makes the pick more likely to happen and at the same time a sketchier call because of the defender's momentary deviation from one-to-one marking. To switch effectively here, both defenders have to expect it and trust that they can commit to the move without there being any verbal communication. If the defenders are ready to switch here, then 4 primary short field options are taken out. They are punished harshly for this momentary lapse because Gasperini has pivoted infield immediately after catching, not wasting any time on auto fakes, and is well balanced and ready to throw anything. Training to switch and to punish blown switches is a good use of practice time. For switching drills, check out the training tier on our Patreon. They don't switch, and it's not really a pick, so the defense end up surrounded by the offense, which is the opposite of where they want to be. This error leads to the goal, as Fotta hit a continuation in flow and then punish face marking with a calm throw to space.
I believe that's Laffy. Floats it over to Tonelli.
Fotta seemed to completely forget to mark Conrad Wilson as he runs deep down the middle of the field off the pull. With these angles and distances, any throw which quickly makes it to the end zone here would likely end up in Wilson's hands. Gordon spots movement from the poachers and pulls out of the throw. Yo is the poached player, so he receives an uncontested pass in the middle of the field. Clapham begin to cluster in front of the disc, and then comes the first turnover of the match.
Sees Wilson.
Wilson pump fakes the same throw that he ends up releasing, which often results in a turnover when any player does this. Whether it's the mechanics being disrupted or miscommunication with his teammates downfield, Me can't reel it in, and the Fotta D-line gets the disc in their hands for the first time. There's a pick between Wilson and Gordon downfield, and Fotta called a timeout. Fotta D-line come out with a classic horizontal set play plan. 2 in front of the disc go deep, and the third one comes across. Ollie Gordon gets close with this bid and earns Clapham O-line the disc back. Briggs picks it up early and shows Fotta how to punish the aggressive sideline no dump force with a downfield throw and go move. I'd love to see the disc go down the sideline again, but it's faked and Clapham throw over to the other side. Although Clapham are clustering, Fotta are not switching or surrounding to cover all the angles of the team, and 1.5 seconds after catching the disc, Ford is able to place a backhand to Wilson in the far corner.
It's worth noting that Ashley Yo was in a very strong position to continue flow from this point, and that Clapham's clustering downfield had caused another pick.
Clapham send 3 players to the disc, and there's a miscommunication with Gasparini as he pulls out of the cut when he sees Alistair McNeil approaching. First time Clapham D-line get the disc in their hands, and they bring out a militant vert stack commanded by Oscar Modiano. After a predictable first couple of cuts, Brooks does some great work at the back with McNeil to initiate and sustain flow. Fotta's buzz switch isn't tight, and Brooks gets them double committing on Slaughter. A couple of passes later, Brooks again gets the disc moving forward and finds a pinpoint pass across the front of the end zone. Modiano does have his foot down just inside the end zone, and Slaughter catches the extra pass in the back corner.
With a lovely shot.
Fantastic pull by McHale, and Clapham come down sagging off the handlers again, whilst Fotta spread and cross over.
Tonelli. Gasparini with a lovely back undercut, but
Fotta throw another sketchy inside reset off the line, before crossing over again, prompting another pick call. Hillman switches to cover the open player, a good move, but it's negated by the pick. Tonelli throws to this cut from DeLuca, which isn't very open, and DeLuca unfortunately pulls his hamstring on the play, as many players have done this year after coming out of lockdown.
Although he seems to have pulled something, we hope he is okay, and that's just a...
Ford times his deep cut well and is visibly frustrated when Briggs holsters it. There's a pick called by loose defensive positioning, stopping the play.
You want to talk talismanic players?
Yo faces in field after catching. Ford steps through to go up line, and Gordon has been watching the play develop, so uses his speed and then his height.
A lot of float, but that's how Ollie Gordon likes it, because he gets to act like a superstar.
Really interesting seeing them change Ollie Gordon onto the O-line. I saw that earlier this tournament was a defensive player trying to...
Clapham sag off the handlers again, and some disconnected movement starts happening downfield. With adrenaline pumping and no mark for a second after a bid from Charlie Butt, Zani misthrows a deep shot to a couple of meters of separation, which wasn't helped by a crossover no-switch pick type thing. He had 2 open options on stall 0, with his defender out of position momentarily, which would allow him to accelerate unhindered downfield. Instead, the bid and the opportunity to throw deep gets him overexcited, and results in a turnover we can put down to decision-making affected by pressure from the defense. There aren't any switches from Fotta, and after a couple of foul calls on the mark, Clapham work it up, Brooks again being key, receiving this lefty from Thompson and penetrating the defense.
Brooks is a lot of hard work being done by these Clapham cutters.
And again getting the disc moving forwards to create the scoring sequence. Great separation, drawing a poach, and then punishing it with a well-weighted lead pass to Thompson. Really smooth balance control for this throw-and-go scoring touch pass.
From what I've seen so far, Fotta have been disappointing on both offense and defense, crossing over constantly on O and not using any teamwork at all on defense. Clapham's defensive teamwork has been much better than last time, with plenty of switching, but the opportunities have been handed to them by Lefota's crossovers on offense, meaning Clapham either switch or they call pick, again and again. We'll see whether either team make any adjustments as the game goes on. That's all for now, I'll see you again soon.
McNeil getting down and dirty, well, down and rubber crummy as the case may be.